Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search. Brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And today I have on the show with me Dana Garnett, mediator, conflict strategist, and CPA. And we're going to talk about how that kind of evolved here in a minute, because it's a little bit of a mix. Dana is also the founder of her private practice, Mindful Strategy, LLC, which merges her Big 8 accounting and international Fortune 100 experience with vastly acquired global life lessons. That was a lot to say in one breath. Today, she joins us to discuss a simple yet powerful tool that can boost your company's social dynamics, take creativity, productivity, and profitability to new heights. And I will tell you, I have seen this in action. I had Dana in our office for a lunch and learn to do this, and I'm going to let her tell you about what that technique is, but it works. I will tell you that. So Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Casey. It is really great to see you again.
I know, it's been, I don't even know the last time that we saw each other.
Oh my God, maybe a year or so?
I think it was longer
Maybe
than
longer
that.
than that. Yeah, it could be.
So,
anyway, either way, it's great.
I know, and I love to tell people how we got connected, and I think this is kind of so appropriate that we're recording here today, because it was because of Real News PR that we got connected originally.
That's right, absolutely.
And so Suzanne McCafferty,
right,
she called me and she says, hey, I have this really neat lady that would be great for your team, because she knew I was always looking for, out-of-the-box lunch and learn material for my team, and she told me about you, and I'm like, sign me up.
It's pretty out of the box stuff, yeah.
It certainly is. So, okay, I would love if you would just kind of walk people through your career from Big 8 accounting to mediator, and then I know you've added some new tools lately. So
sure.
Just very quickly tell us, how did that happen?
Got it. Okay, so in a nutshell, went from what was the Big 8, right, Coopers and Lybrand, into internal auditing with the Coca-Cola Company. Did that domestically for about 2.5 years, went internationally with that. Ended up, my first assignment after I rolled off the audit staff was Nigeria, and I effectively became an expatriate. And around the time went from there to Brussels, Belgium, and had married at that point and started a family. And when our twin daughters were about 3, I decided, I partly decided to early retire myself. It was also just after 9/11. And all the downturn of 2001 and all that. And so I was able to basically follow my spouse around the world, and we call that being an expat trailing spouse. That went really well, devoting my time to family. And we were just celebrating 20 years of marriage. And I guess out of the blue then, but not so much looking back now, I got a call from him. And let's just suffice it to say, a horrible divorce was embroiling. 18 months after that, I found myself back in Dallas and going through hell. And coming out of mediation, met someone who asked me about the experience. And I remember myself saying, there's no playbook for marriage, there's no playbook for divorce, and no one should suffer like this. And I wish I could help people from suffering like this. And they basically said, well, just become a mediator and do it better yourself. And I said, well, I can't, I'm not a lawyer. And that's when I learned you don't have to be one. And that's when I learned SMU has a fantastic graduate program, one of the top in the country. And 2.5 years after that, I've got my degree and I'm rolling off with my new practice. But it only took within 18 months of my divorce decree to be fully recovered, not just recovered, but really I experienced what's called post-traumatic growth. And I could look back at all the ways I contributed to that life that I thought I was a victim of, and it took the cathartic experience of becoming a mediator and training up for that, as well as discovering the neuroscience of conflict. And that's what I did, this deep dive and never looked back.
Wow. Neuroscience of conflict. And so I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, how do you even map the mind to figure out what that looks like?
Right. Well, actually, it's some people consider it in the umbrella of social emotional intelligence skills, and it's basically being aware that we have the ability, because we're not taught this in school, but we have the ability to rewire our neural pathways in the moment, such that if we've been plagued with some kind of dispute or conflict or something that's always been driving us nuts for our lifetime, we can actually process that in a certain way to clear that up. It doesn't get rid of the memory bank, but it doesn't trigger you anymore. And yeah, exactly. And you don't, going forward, you don't find yourself tripping up and creating unnecessary conflict for yourself and others, because you've now learned what I call the language of connection. And it's all real-time resolution. And I, as a mediator, when I walk into a room and I'm dealing with people's stuff, another big thing I had to learn for myself in life that I apply to mediation is, we really shouldn't and can't get attached emotionally to what's going on with somebody else, because that drags us in, and now we make it about how we feel. And as a mediator, you're no longer objective, and that's not good. But in life, we often put our assumptions in there, our judgments, our opinions, and that takes us down the slippery slope to unnecessary conflict. 'Cause conflict's going to happen, but just trying to avoid the unnecessary part of it.
That is so interesting that you say that, because I don't know if I told you this or not, but I just started coaching school in March.
Right.
And one of the things that they teach us is that you do have to they call it getting in the box with your client, and because you don't need to be emotionally attached to what they're going through. It has nothing to do with you. Their experience is their own. And so you don't want to get in the box with them and go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's true, because you don't know their histories, you don't know what they're like, or what and you don't want to give them advice that they go off and do, and then if it doesn't work, you really haven't served them.
Yeah, they're mad at you.
Yes.
They know the answer, you want to guide them to the answer. So
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
So boy, we just jumped way ahead. And
sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I love this. But I do want to give an opportunity to kind of talk about mindful strategy, because it is such a unique business, because it combines the work you do as a mediator and your experience that you gain from being a CPA. Tell me a little bit about, and I know how you got to where you are today, but tell me about mindful strategy. What's the purpose of it, and what got you to create it?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And it took me about a year to conceive mindful strategy, and it came out of, the mindful part is on the expatriate track. When I became that trailing spouse, one of the places we moved to and lived for 7 years was Thailand, in Bangkok. And I had recently left my career, and so I tapped into my first love in life, which is the performing arts. And so I established a performing arts studio. I was teaching kids ballet and jazz and
I did not know that.
And voice, yeah. And my daughters were showing prowess in the arts and all that. So anyway, I was also looking for other things to do. And so I took this wonderful course to become a volunteer tour guide at the National Museum in Bangkok. And you have to learn a lot about art history to do these tours. And when you learn about art history, you learn a lot about religion. And so, I never knew the naivete of it all, that, Buddhism predated Christianity and Hinduism predated Buddhism, and how that all ties together. And it was fascinating to me. And through all that experience, I learned about mindfulness, being in the present moment. And so when I went through my divorce and I was regrouping myself and decided to be a mediator, I was like, how do I help people with this skill? I mean, mediation I can do, but I want to go broader and help people not get them out of conflict fast, but avoid the unnecessary challenges in life. And that's when I thought, I spent a lot of time in Big 8 with family businesses and small businesses. Back in the day, moved out of downtown Dallas to this new emerging business office in the Galleria here in Dallas. And I loved these audits I went on, because you were dealing with retail shops, right? Mom and pop shops, a communications company, a small tech company, small community banks. everybody would, you're trying to do the audit, and they're all saying, can you help me with my daughter? She doesn't want to take over the business, and I've set it up for her to do it, or my son just, oh my God, they're fighting. The sibling rivalry is killing us. Can you
wow.
and you're the auditor trying to do the job, right?
Right.
And of course I didn't get involved in all that, but I looked back, and that coupled with my corporate experience with Coca-Cola, because I went from corporate to regional division audits, and then mom and pop shops across the world. And I thought, I have that strategy experience from the business world. The mindfulness from Thailand is like, it just kind of clicked. Like that's what I want to call what I do, the mindful strategy, and I just kind of call it mindful strategy casually. But yeah, it's that mindset. But again, because of the training I had later with HeartMath, it's getting to the mind, and strategizing has to do with the heart.
Yes.
Completely. And that is something that evolved. So it's all just kind of falling neatly together. But does that help answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That answers
All right.
it very well. And I just, want to kind of stop down here on the HeartMath for a second, because this is what was so fascinating to me. I mean, everything you do is fascinating, but the HeartMath, I'm just like, wow, when you were talking about, and I'll let you share this, but how the heart has its own brain, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
With MRI technology coming out, several years ago, they were able to debunk a lot of myths and validate a lot of research from the past. And the heart, in fact, has its own brain. I'm not a physician, I'm not a scientist, but from what I've been trained in, it's referred to as the little brain, and it has neurons firing off in it, just like our brain in our head does. And it's the largest operating organ of our body. And when we are focusing on our heart and really in tune with that, we optimize all the connections, not just between our heart and our brain, but all of our systems, whether it's digestive or limbic, immune system, which is incredibly important right now during this whole COVID crisis.
Right.
When we get stressed, for whatever reason, we're stressing our immune system. When we practice something called coherence, which can be, it's like eyes wide open, take it with you throughout the day. You can also do it reflectively, but it is, you can de-stress in a heartbeat. And if you understand how that works, you can actually help boost your immune system. And I've had clients who have had a drop in blood pressure.
Wow.
And been able to get off medication. Some by half, some completely, in less than 3-6 months, because they've shifted to a whole new way of operating, not thinking, but feeling and operating.
Well, and you teach this to first responders too, right? What's the purpose of teaching it to first responders?
When a paramedic shows up at the scene of a crisis, they have to respond and be in the moment, and their heart rate may be racing, which is fine because it has nothing to do with heart rate, but they have to, it's not like a meditative state. You don't want the paramedic showing up or a police officer showing up at a scene, chill, right? And just it's like, I'm so relaxed, I can't, I just can't do anything right now. No, it's like being in a zone like no other, and it gives you such clarity on how to react and how to respond in short instances, and it helps keep their stress level at bay, so that when they're done with that particular call, let's say, or that crisis, that scene, they haven't just been so racked with stress that they can't regroup for the next call out.
Right.
And it's sad that police officers particularly, and firefighters, have a very high rate of suicide. And I spoke last October at the Texas Association of Hostage Negotiators, I think it was their 26th annual training conference. And I had been doing a lot of reading about that, I've been preparing for that. And there were speakers there confirming what I was reading, that an officer within about 5 years of retirement is likely to die sooner if they haven't been able to find purpose in life and be able to handle, all that time being jacked up in the job. And if you can't process that effectively, suddenly you're retired, and I mean, I can't say this from experience, but I spoke to a lot of police officers particularly and negotiators that it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. More officers and firefighters die from suicide than in the line of duty. And so the HeartMath Institute has a huge program internationally to reach out to first responders and teach them these tools to de-stress in the moment, to help them on.
That is fascinating, and I love the work that you do with that. So very quickly, would you mind sharing your technique for de-stressing? Because it doesn't take long.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, not at all. It's 2 steps. The first is simply to focus. It's called heart-focused breathing. You focus your attention on your heart and where it's located, in your body, and you're breathing in slower and deeper than you normally would through that heart space. Okay. Well, I'll actually officially do this in a moment, but just give you the 2 steps. The second step, which takes you into a deeper place of coherence, is regenerating or re-experiencing a feeling of appreciation for something in your life, whatever's easy for you. For some people, it's a beautiful sunset. It's a painting. It's curling up with their dog. It's music that they love to hear, whatever. And it's advised when you first do this to do something, reflect on something that's important for you or special to you and you alone, not involving someone else. Because sometimes we reflect on when things were wonderful, but now they're not. And it gets us back in our head.
Yep.
And it defeats the purpose of trying to do this.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, ready? And try it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, and you can do this eyes wide open or closed as you wish.
Okay.
Simply focus your attention on the area of your heart and breathe in and out of your heart or chest area, slower and deeper than usual. And as you do this, regenerate a feeling of appreciation or joy or gratitude for something in your life. And if you start thinking a thought, just circle back to refocusing your attention on your heart and heart-focused breathing and regenerating a feeling of joy or appreciation. And that's pretty much it. Whenever you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes.
I'm kind of in the moment.
Go for it. Just hang there. That's good. You can hang there as long as you want.
I'm a huge fan of meditation and mindfulness, so I love this, and I think because I've practiced it for a little bit longer, I can kind of go deep pretty quick.
Yes, right.
And so, but that was great, and I think that for anybody listening or even watching the show today, please take a moment and do that exercise. I promise you, when Dana was in our office, she actually had one of our employees hooked up to a machine that was monitoring their heart rate, even though that's not an indication. You said it doesn't matter if it goes fast, but he was hooked up to this, and she deliberately stressed him out first, which I thought was hilarious.
Gently
Stressed him out. And then
that's all it takes.
Took him through this process, and you could just see the spike, and then it just went drastically down very quickly using this process. And I promise you, if you try this, it will work for you. And instead of producing the cortisol, you're going to produce the
dehydroepiandrosterone.
That.
DHEA,
the good stuff. The stuff you want to produce.
The vitality hormone, absolutely. And what's happening on that M-Wave Pro software with HeartMath, it's measuring the increase and the decrease of your heartbeat and the distance between the heartbeat. It's measuring heart rate variability. And when we're stressed, you get a jagged line. But when we are de-stressing, that line smooths out. And so that's what you were seeing on the screen. And if I may add just a quick comment about how it relates to meditation, because itself is not a meditative practice. It's not a breathing exercise or a type of meditation. It's a technique all to itself because you're specifically focusing on the heart. In meditation, because I learned transcendental meditation or TM when I was in Thailand too, and I do that too, and Reiki, energy healing.
I want to talk to you about that afterwards.
Okay, good. Let's do. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God, I love Reiki. But basically, and I learned about TM and Reiki before I ever knew about HeartMath. HeartMath can empower or enhance your meditative practice, because meditation is about a conscious state of being, right? You've got the mantra going, okay? And with coherence, the quick coherence technique, when we focus our attention on the area of our heart, we get out of that headspace, right? It's not about thinking a positive thought, it's about feeling
Gotcha.
a positive feeling. That's what connects us to the executive functioning portion of our frontal lobe, which affects problem solving, decision making, communication, right? Which is so critical in business.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you practice coherence and you already meditate, wow, that's just going to take you on the next level.
You know what? I didn't even think about doing that at the same time. So I'm going to try that tomorrow in my meditation.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I really want to get to this question.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about emo storms and the emo storm risk index, and how does it help business assess their internal culture?
Okay. So I came up with emo storm from thinking of emotional storms.
Okay.
Okay. Businesses will insure themselves against theft and liability and, storms of Mother Nature, right?
Yeah, right.
But what about the storms of human nature, right? The things that they blindside you.
Yes.
When I did an interview with Josh here not too long ago, he described his favorite restaurant went under because of a divorce.
Ugh.
And those are emotional storms that happen, lawsuits, partnerships, disputes, right?
Yes.
And so the idea of emotional storms and what I did was I created a very quick quiz that you take, and you get a score that places you on what I call the emo storm risk index. The lower the score, the higher you're more susceptible and maybe less aware of what could wipe you out or your business out from just trauma blowing up out of nowhere. The higher your score, the less susceptible you are, but there may be still some gaps that you may want to fill. And when I talk to people who have taken the quiz and have an idea of where they are, I can help guide them to see what do they need specifically and customize that, fine-tune that to their business needs. Whether it's much needed intervention to help, stop something fast so that it doesn't take the business out, or prevention,
Right.
through establishing what I call a conflict management system. Just like you have payroll, AP, AR systems, you got to process transactions, right? And
Yep.
process your finances. You got to process your emotional stuff. What if a company also had a conflict management system, a communication system where everything's being processed efficiently and doesn't, reduce your productivity and hit your profit bottom line and all that because no one's getting along?
That is so perfect. And I think, and it's probably not original to my sister, but unfortunately my sister was laid off due to COVID. She was in the hospitality industry, way up there. And,
Sorry.
This was her second job since she graduated from college,
Yeah.
It was
It's
like,
a tough
and she's
time.
like, what do I do? But I love the fact that she was so careful with her questions when she was interviewing. And she said, what does your employee happiness program look like?
Yes.
And that's when they came back and started talking about their flex time and all that kind of stuff. So I love that question.
Right.
What is your employee happiness? And that kind of leads us to this next one. So let's talk about employee wellness, okay? How can someone's personal conflicts in their own lives affect their performance in the workplace?
Okay, so whatever's going on with someone personally can easily bleed into the workplace, and vice versa. If, like, I have a client, for example, who has hired me to teach his team how to manage conflict in the moment, and what he's done is kind of the flip side. He wants to help them be also personally aligned, right?
Okay.
Happy people make a happy business.
Absolutely.
And so like your sister was
Yep.
talking about, right? So if someone has got something going on in their personal life, he's actually, we have an arrangement where they can come get some help, or, and I'm not a therapist, by the way. I'm on purpose, not a therapist. This
Right.
is not therapy. It's real-time resolution. It's rewriting neural pathways.
Right.
It's got neuroscience, evidence research-based data behind it. But it's basically helping people in their personal lives work through things so that when they show up at work, they're not just their head's clear, but their heart's clear. And they're more productive because they're not distracted
Yeah.
by what's going on. So, you're not it doesn't, and when people say don't bring your stuff to work,
Not possible.
that's actually not a healthy thing to ask them to do, because now you're asking them to suppress something
Yep.
that's just going to blow up at some point. It's going to get triggered by something. So does that help answer the question?
Absolutely.
How those two relate?
Absolutely. And this one's kind of a tricky one. So conflict resolution in the workplace can be tricky, as it is difficult to get involved without taking sides. So what's the number one piece of advice you can share with employers to help them approach a conflict resolution situation?
First and foremost, resist the temptation to judge what's going on. Your opinions, your assumptions, your presumptions are going to get in the way.
Yes.
Again, you've made it about what you think is the issue. So that's number one. Number two is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. What have you considered or guessed might be going on with them? And turn over every stone. Don't just presume that person is a problem person, right? And thirdly, you want to be able to, having stepped back without judgment and putting yourself in their shoes, you want to make sure that if it's a serious altercation, to get some professional help, seriously.
Yes.
Conflict resolution help. Because just like doctors do not tend to treat their own family members, mediators are trained not to mediate their family. If you're the business owner, if you're the employer, or you're the manager, the supervisor, it doesn't really help for you to be the one to mediate or to try to fix the problem or to help them fix their problem, because everyone's too close to it.
Right.
Even if you are a fantastic negotiator, the challenge is the other people can't see you as objective. Even if you feel you're really, really objective, they can't see you as objective, especially when their bandwidth is just completely overloaded with whatever the conflict or the crisis is.
That makes so much sense now that you say that, like, seriously, your supervisor, if you've got a conflict, you should not, and it's a serious I'm not talking about, like you're 5 minutes late, but I mean, a serious conflict, you need to get some outside perspective on that, because you're right, somebody's going to think they lost.
Yeah. Yes, right.
And
right. Yeah.
That's just not the way that you're going to create a happy culture.
Right. Or it's going to be back to suppressing whatever's going on, and they're not going to want to, they're not going to want to talk about it because they didn't feel heard to start. They didn't feel heard, they didn't feel appreciated. So it's like, why do I even bother? And they just go about their business at work, but the grumblings, the under the surface stuff just kind of stays there until the next time, bam.
Yep.
It all blows up again.
Absolutely. Such incredible information. I, remembered this from our training that you did for us on the Lunch and Learn, and this is just, it's just such good information for people. I'm all about the mindset. I'm all about the mindfulness. And this is such a great technique to kind of, in the moment, just calm it down.
Yeah.
And I think that if we would all practice this, there would be less fighting in the workplace. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And one other thing to add, and it's a whole other discussion in itself, but it's understanding to have that communication, be able to articulate what I call the language of connection. Have a vocabulary accessible to you that comes to you second nature, to be able to communicate in a way that doesn't throw fuel on the fire, or doesn't put somebody off, and I sit on the board of directors for an organization called the Connection Practice. Excuse me. And
is that new?
It's it's actually, we haven't talked about it much, but it's been around for 15 or more years, maybe 20 years now. But it's basically the concept started out of education. The founder wanted to help eradicate or at least address bullying in schools, because the children who are often the bully are often a victim themselves. And so she went about this concept, this process, and it has now it's organically grown. And so with her permission, I've been doing some piloting work with it in the business field.
Okay.
And because a lot of it in the education world is a bit more flowery because you're dealing with kids, right? But in the business, it's like, we got a business to run. So the cool thing about the connection practice is that's how I learned about HeartMath.
Oh, okay.
The coherence technique is actually used in this process.
Okay.
But when I found out about HeartMath, I had to do a deeper dive. I was like amazed. I understood now I understand why we had the what conversations the way we do. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to lower everybody's stress.
That's what we need. Yeah. And just real quick, I mean, how does stress affect a workplace, and how can you identify stress in order to address it?
Okay. How does it affect the workplace? We all walk around with this magnetic field. Mm-hmm. Anybody ever gotten too close to you? Especially now when we're distancing, right?
Right.
Okay, it's like, well, your fields are bumping up against each other, right? So the question is, what are we feeding the field? If we show up stressed every day, we are feeding that environment stress. And you hear of toxic work environments.
Yes.
Yeah. Same thing happens. If somebody is feeding you stress, the beautiful thing is you don't have to absorb it. By understanding how to process or use coherence and regulate your heart and brain, you can actually, you can deflect other people's stress, and not just deflect it, but you actually have a knock-on effect to help them start to de-stress. And there are studies around that, like group studies. I could go into more, but that's one thing. And then the follow-up question you said
was how can you identify the stress in order to address it?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Identifying is just, the identifiers is when people are, there's that expression, you can cut the tension with the knife,
yes.
right? Or someone says, I'm so stressed I can't think, right? People's behaviors, the worried brow, just the disorientation, not able to focus in meetings, people, just the slightest thing said, someone, goes off at them or something. Mm-hmm. Those are all signs of stress. But it's so easy to quickly dig down beneath the surface through connecting with them in a way that is just, it has such a knock-on benefit. Because my tagline for Mindful Strategy is real-time resolution for real. And that's how I was able to recover from my life crisis so quickly. And I walk this stuff. I walk the walk and talk the talk constantly because it was so easy for it to become second nature in my life. And I just feel I want to tell as many people about it and help them. Because guess what? If we can all be never stress-free, because never say never, right? But it's like be able to lower our stress, our cortisol, and build that DHEA level in our systems, everyone's going to have the knock-on effect.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that. We can actually have a much more peaceful environment.
And these fields have been measured. This is not like woo-woo. This is scientifically measurable.
Our heart's field measures out 3 feet. We know it goes further out because people feel connected to people across the world at times. Someone you've haven't heard from somebody in 2 years, and they phone you up suddenly because you've been thinking about them. It's like the suddenly get a phone call from them. It's like, oh my God, that's weird. But the brain, the field, magnetic field from the brain, only measures an inch. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. So the heart is really at the core of everything.
So how do people get in touch with you? Because we want to help spread your message.
Certainly. My website is mindfulstrategy.com. And if you want to jump right into my quiz, it's myemostormbizquiz.com. But you'll find the quiz on my website.
Awesome.
So there you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are to our VIP questions.
Okay.
Everyone has to answer these. That's part of the prize to play.
I was prepared. Or thank you for preparing me. There you go.
So if you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
Okay. 1. I keep by my bedside this little stress ball. Okay, it's like it's hard, it has little spikes on it, and you can. Well, I mean, you get these in yoga shops. Sorry, that sounds really weird. Let me go back. It's
like a
massage, like a massage ball. Okay, there's ones that you can squeeze. This one, it actually stimulates. Like when you squeeze it, it can stimulate nerve endings. I use it actually for stimulating the nerve endings throughout my body, but like every morning before I get up, I drop that ball and step on it and massage my feet so that I don't know, I feel like it gives me a boost. And if I had to go to Mars,
you need a boost.
I actually take that with me when I travel because I speak a lot. And
right.
Well, I did on the road, and hopefully we'll get back to that. But I'm always on my feet. I'm always on the go. And that is like a physical way for me to quickly just get in touch with myself. And so I thought, what would I want to take? And as weird as it sounds, it's a great, you can find them at Lifetime Fitness or wherever you work out. But that's one thing. Two, my father's iPod Nano.
Okay. Be like Guardians of the Galaxy style.
Yeah. He died 3 years ago, and I only discovered his iPod Nano after he died. And it has like 8 days worth of music, of playlists that he organized. And I would want to have all that music with me because music has been precious to our family forever. Lastly, I would want to take with me an anonymous young playwright. Because if we're going to colonize Mars, think of the stories to tell. And it's through theater and plays and theatrical productions that we learn about history, and we capture these moments and get somebody who's, new generation and not known yet because they don't have any preconceived notions about the world or the universe, and have them capture history through playwriting. That's what I do.
I love that. Those are good choices. Not that there's any bad choices, but it is what it is. But you're the one that's going to have to live up there. So
I know, and I really gave it some thought. It's like that's what I do. Okay.
So what is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
Okay, quick coherence.
Yep.
Upon waking, quick coherence, and then I roll right into some TM, transcendental meditation, and often bring into that some Reiki healing for myself, and I spend more or less 20 minutes with that, and it just kind of puts me in that mindset, right? But I used to do TM on its own, which is fabulous, but starting through my heart, oh my God, the exponential ideas that come, the downloads that come, and the creative thinking that I journal thereafter is so helpful. So anyway, that's what I do.
I love that.
Yep.
If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
All right. There are so many quotes that I love, and I was trying to think which one, maybe that could be it. And then it dawned on me. The article would say, "Mai Pen Rai." Mai Pen Rai is Thai for no worries.
Oh.
And the philosophical background to this is you can't change the past.
Yep.
And you can't control the future. So what you're left with is to make the most out of the present moment. And so, Meditator lives Mai Pen Rai. That would be the title of the article.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Dana, this has been such a great conversation, as I knew it would be. Thank you so much for braving to come into studio with us today. I really appreciate that. And I just have one more thing to say to you.
Sure.
You are a VIP.
Oh, thank you, as are you. And I want to thank you for the questions you've asked, and especially those last three. They're so inspiring and thought-provoking that I really appreciated that. So
awesome.
Thank you for everything you do.
You bet.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.